All good? Thank you, Kathy. We'll call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the San Diego Water District, Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. And can we have roll call, please?
Present.
Board Member Schaefer?
Here.
Board Member O'Hara?
Present.
Vice President Ehlers?
Here.
And President Lyons?
Here.
Record will show that all members of the San Diego Water District Board are present. And the board does receive an independent stipend of $100 for convening water district meetings pursuant to Water District Resolution number 89-07.
Thank you. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. Today, we don't have any special presentations or proclamations. City Clerk, is there any oral communication today?
There are none.
Thank you. A report from closed session. There was no closed session held, and there will be no report. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the posted agenda. And then regarding the consent calendar, no members of the public have removed any items.
Thank you. Moving to item 8, the consent calendar. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
All right. Thank you.
Just one moment.
We're moving fast. The city clerk will catch up.
And that motion does carry unanimously.
Well, thank you. We'll now go to item 10A, which is an action item. And this item is the proposed amendment to the San Diego Water District Administrative Code, Article 11, Conflict of Interest Code. And it will be our city clerk or board clerk, Kathy Hollywood, who will provide us with a staff report on this item.
Thank you, President Lyons. Yes, the item before you is a proposed amendment to San Diego Water District Admin Code, Article 11, regarding conflict of interest. So what this code change is proposed to do is to have all employees that are designated as Form 700 filers to have the official filing officer be the city clerk. Currently, part of the employees are report to the city clerk, and then part of the employees report to San Diego County. So in this case, everything will be, for San Diego Water District, will all be in one place. It will all be held with the City of Encinitas official filing system. If the board does approve this change to the code, then I will send that proposed code amendment and the adopted resolution to the Board of Supervisors. And once they approve, then the code change will take effect.
Okay, thank you.
This is crossed off from my agenda. Sorry.
Board Member O'Hara is pointing to an agenda that he received that shows this item removed from the agenda. Is there any clarification?
That was the prior.
February 19th.
Did you maybe look, I think that might help if you look on.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, I have one right here. Yeah, it was on the January meeting, and then it was pulled from that meeting,
Okay.
because we did want to notice it as a public hearing.
All right.
What I received.
Thank you for that clarification. Might take a moment here to make sure we're all on the same page and we all have the same documents up. The item on our digital interface here is the current item.
Yes.
And one thing I noticed that might be helpful is if you are interested in just quickly scanning the document, you hit the documents and pull it up. It shows you the proposed change of language in red. So thanks for providing it to us in that format so that we can easily pick out what the changes are in this proposed change for the Article 11. So I want to go to my speaker list, and I'd like to call on Vice President Ehlers.
I would like to agree that having the red lines is just absolutely so wonderful to have. And I looked at what I downloaded back, would have been last week, probably on Thursday or Friday, and it was not crossed out on the online. I download my agendas from the public portal, and it was fine, is what I'm saying. And that matches the blue copy that I think is in the room. And so far, it may have been a faux pas. Hopefully, when you speak, you can tell us whether or not you're comfortable moving forward, but.
I've read it, I'm comfortable, I just.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, this sounds great. Getting it all consistent sounds perfect. I would move approval, but leave it open for discussion.
And I just want to encourage board members, if they're interested in speaking, to go ahead and request to speak on the computer, so that I can get everyone in the proper order. And I don't see anyone who's requesting to speak. So we have Vice President Ehlers did move to approve, and is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Just one moment. And just while I'm waiting for this to load, I'll just mention that we already had, since we have an electronic filing system and you already had to file for certain positions here in the city, I always had you file as San Diego Water District here, even though I wasn't the official filing officer. So that way then we have all the records and we're not going to have to worry about all that transfer of records from San Diego County to the city. We already have those.
Thanks for that clarification. I think we'll call the question and
Antonia, wasn't it?
vote.
Yeah. There we go.
Not seeing any other questions.
And that motion does carry unanimously.
Moving to agenda item 11, informational items. We do have one informational item today. It's item 11A, asbestos cement pipe condition assessment and replacement plan. And for this item, we have Senior Engineer Alex, who will give us a staff report. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, President Lyons and directors of the San Diego Water District. Elmer Alex, Principal Engineer. The item I have before you is the asbestos cement pipeline condition assessment and replacement plan. Very briefly, the agenda of the items we're going to be discussing this afternoon. We'll give you some background of this study, the technical approach used by the district and its consultants, the project recommendations that came out of this study, and see how those projects integrate with our 10-year capital improvement program. A little background here. AC was commonly used as a pipe material from 1960 to 1990 in the U.S. and Canada. Approximately 18% of all water pipes in the U.S. and Canada are AC. That accounts for almost 600,000 miles of pipe. The district owns and operates approximately 168 miles of water main. Approximately 67% of that is constructed of AC pipe. The diagram showed to your right there shows the yellow and orange and red pipes, shows the AC pipes in our system. The grayed out sections are other materials. Our district operators are trained regularly, annually on handling AC pipe. So in October 2021, the Board of Directors received and filed the district's water system master plan. This evaluated storage and pipelines and looked at existing and future demands. The water system master plan recommended capital improvement projects primarily on age, condition, and capacity, and further recommended an AC sampling and testing plan. So on November 15, 2023, the board authorized a contract with Hope Consulting and HDR Incorporated to perform a risk assessment analysis on the district's AC pipelines. The AC condition assessment reviews the AC pipelines in our system based on a thorough risk assessment, taking a look at samples and testing of AC pipe, the soil condition, and our maintenance history. This was in order to make a data-driven decision-making in how we're going to replace the AC pipelines in our system. And I'm going to hand it over to Adam Hoke from Hoke Consulting. He'll cover the technical approach of how we got to this report.
Thank you, Elmer. Our approach to the replacement plan is really fourfold. The first element of that plan was to develop a dynamic risk model. Dynamic meaning it can be updated by the city as additional information from the sampling and testing plan comes in. The second element was to review and analyze the data that we had on the district system, and then to calculate a project risk score, so the risk of failure to the city of any pipeline in its system. The third element was to identify and then prioritize replacement projects for the next 10 years for the district. And the last element was the execution of the project, so the replacement element. A little bit about the first step in there, the dynamic project risk score model. It's built based on asset management principles, so maximizing the life cycle of your assets. There are two main features to that, likelihood of failure analysis and a consequence of failure analysis. Likelihood of failure essentially gives a probability that a particular pipeline is going to fail, given various characteristics and environmental factors. The consequence of failure it speaks to the impacts of a particular failure. And you've probably heard of the triple bottom line for consequence of failure. We do look at the fiscal, social, and the environmental impacts of any particular failure. So this particular diagram speaks to an additive approach to developing a project risk score. We take a weighted likelihood of failure score, add that to a weighted consequence of failure score to develop the overall project risk score. Now, in the review and analysis of the data, there's a number of characteristics that we look at, both for likelihood of failure and consequence of failure. This is a pretty exhaustive process of all the data that's available in GIS, data that's available from the district. Things that typically impact the likelihood of failure are break history, the actual condition of the pipeline, and then environmental factors and characteristics intrinsic to the pipe, like pipe size. The other element of this is the consequence of failure. This is more of a qualitative approach in addition to a quantitative approach to calculate the economics of failure, and then to identify items that are critical to a particular district and city that are important to them. On here, an example is our critical customers evaluation. So if a pipeline were to fail, would any critical customers like hospitals be put out of service? That's something that's evaluated here in the consequence of failure section. For the likelihood of failure, we really focused on two main characteristics. The first is break history. We do that because for AC pipelines specifically, data consistently shows that pipes that have broken before are more likely to break again. Now, in doing this analysis, we noted that the district system is performing exceptionally well compared to other systems of a comparable nature. One thing that we use to identify that is a main break rate. So the district's main break rate in that table, the second row from the bottom, is just over 1 break per 100 miles of pipe operated per year, whereas the average of the other agencies that were in the study we looked at were closer to 10 breaks per 100 miles per year. The second characteristic we looked at was pipeline condition. So AC main can deteriorate as time goes on from a variety of reasons, and pipelines that have deteriorated are more likely to break. This was one of the reasons for the 2022 recommendation to implement an AC sampling and testing program. And the preliminary data that was received from that was used in this study to inform our recommendations. This is a graphical overview of how we came up with a project risk map and how likelihood of failure differs from consequence of failure, and then ultimately arrives at our project risk score. The left graph shows you the raw likelihood of failure scores, and that is by pipeline segment. Green means it has a lesser likelihood of failure, whereas the yellow and orange and then subsequent red pipelines show a higher risk of failure. Similarly, consequence of failure is in the middle. And then the overall project risk score, once we add those weighted values together, comes out on the right-hand graphic. And once we came up with that project risk score, we actually did a calibration of the model to make sure that it reflected real-world observations. So pipelines that were identified in the 2022 master plan and are currently in process for being replaced, either design or preliminary construction, were used to calibrate the model. So this methodology came up with two main project areas. The first is Faith and McKinnon. So this recommendation is a little bit under 2,000 linear feet of 6 and 12-inch diameter pipeline replacement. This is adjacent to one of the areas that was identified in the 2022 master plan as needing replacement. Key drivers to kind of benchmark why this is a recommendation. The pipeline on Faith had 2 breaks, and they had 2 breaks in a relatively short time span, so 2.3 years between those breaks. Additionally, the sampling and testing program showed that this pipeline was deteriorated more relative to the other pipelines. The second project area is in downtown Encinitas. So the pipelines that we identified here are over 10,000 linear feet. And so the replacement plan phases this out into 3 different projects. It is 4-inch, 6-inch, and 12-inch pipes. And again, the key drivers are multiple recent breaks, poor condition, and this project also has some inoperable valves in it, which will be replaced as part of it. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Elmer.
Thank you, Adam. So in summary, what I'm saying is our AC pipe is performing very well, and it's maintaining its physical integrity. A lot of this is attributable to our operational practices, including minimal pressure surges due to our system design, which is a gravity design. And then using the likelihood of failure and consequence of failure to prioritize our replacement decisions came up with those for the 2 projects. So I want to kind of frame how those projects are going to fit in the next 10 years with some of the projects in the water system master plan. So in the first project is the Cardiff replacement project. That's ID number 1. That was from the water system master plan, and that identified as project number 1 and 2 in the water system master plan. That's currently in design. We have the water system capacity improvements. We're also doing an ARV and blow-off replacement phase 2. And then the Faith and McKinnon downtown phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, as Adam is saying, to break that apart due to the cost, to level out the expenses, but also from an operational standpoint, it'd be very difficult to replace that many mains in one project and keep everyone's water service going. I'll come back to this slide to kind of cover more of the projects. So the Cardiff replacement project, again, was in the 22 water system master plan. Like I said, it's in design. It's about 3,300 linear feet of replacements all along Cambridge, Oxford, Montgomery, Newcastle area in Cardiff. The water capacity improvements project, that was ID number 2. We're going to begin design in fiscal year 2026. This is approximately 2,400 linear feet of upsizing. This includes a segment here on Gascony, just south of La Costa Avenue. And it will also include a couple of areas on the south side, which is Avocet Court and Via Temple. That's about 1,400 linear feet of upsizing of pipe. Along with this plan, we'll also be implementing this asset management from Hogue. They're giving us a replacement analysis tool. So we'll update this model that he was describing they had prepared for us periodically as new data comes in, such as new breaks, or we find out different, as we're continuing to do sampling if we discover other areas of deterioration, to help us make decisions along the way. So this will be a continuous business practice by the district staff. And that this kind of frames, again, the 10-year CIP project summary, where those different locations are. The Faith and McKinnon ID number 4 will start design in fiscal year 2027 with construction in 2028, 2029. And the downtowns, again, sequential, starting design in 2029, taking about 2 years to construct, and then subsequently phase 2 and phase 3 in the coming years. The table also shows the relative, where the recent rate approvals are. So years 1 and 2 of this 10-year CIP plan are included in, are shown with the rates approved and where that water infrastructure fund and where our available balance is for years 1 and 2. We'll have further rate studies along the way to incorporate these projects. And staff's recommendation is to receive and file the asbestos cement pipeline condition assessment and replacement plan. And staff is available if you have any other questions.
Thank you for the presentation. I don't see any speakers in the queue yet. Oh, yes, thank you. Board Member Schaefer.
Thank you for the presentation. Really appreciate it. With all of the priorities, do we have any look at, again, I've made mention over the last month, really, of us being a high earthquake. Is there any indication or areas where might be of greater concern because of, again, earthquake kind of danger or something of that nature?
Earthquakes certainly can pose an impact and a negative impact to water systems. What we saw, and it's predominantly from the sampling and testing plan, was that there are pipelines that are softer and more deteriorated than in other locations, and it's not spaced out by age of pipe. You have 1950s pipe that looks relatively good, and you have 1970s pipe that looks pretty deteriorated. So earthquakes in general can impact maybe pipes that are more deteriorated than not, or pipes that are more brittle than others. So that is a factor, but that's a factor with most water systems when you have earth.
So the question is what, do we know why that they're wearing out in certain areas at a greater capacity? And then 2, the question, to refine the first question is, there are areas that seem to maybe have, like fault lines, right? Are there, I'm not going to say the word fault line because I'm not looking at that, but are there spots in town that have a greater, for lack of a better term, a fault line style weakness, if you will, in their areas?
Well, we found the geotechnical conditions to be in very good condition for in the city.
Okay.
So we didn't find any particular areas through the soil sampling of any particular areas where the soil is contributing more to deterioration than what we have.
Okay. I'm just looking across, like you see the Sanskrit across the lagoon in San Alejo. You see areas that are a little bit more naturally divided. There might be more pressure just by that. And then the second question, or the first, if you will, second question was do we know why the specific pipes are running out faster?
Well, so I brought David Spencer up. He's a technical expert on the project with HDR. And so we did look at, we did rule out a number of factors for impacting the AC pipe deterioration. And David can speak a little bit more to variability in the deterioration.
Thank you.
Yes, so the primary mechanism for deterioration in your system is called calcium leaching. This is a process that as the calcium is leached from the pipe, you're also losing cement and therefore strength within the pipe. Predominantly, that is driven by internal deterioration from the water being conveyed, and is a little more consistent amongst your system. But where there's higher groundwater tables or slightly more aggressive soils, like those soils at Faith and McKinnon, that's where we're seeing some accelerated deterioration, where that portion of the system is in a little bit worse condition or significantly worse condition than most of your other pipes that we sampled. So as part of this process, we collected a number of physical samples where we took a portion of the pipe wall out and tested it to be able to quantify the effective remaining thickness of that pipe and really understand which portions of your system are deteriorating faster or slower, and make sure that any investments in replacement are really focused on the right pipes at the right time.
Copy, thank you. And the reason I ask is, are there any other areas in town that have the exact same water table that aren't having the same issue? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you're saying it's an external issue, but it's an internal pipe breakdown. I'm just trying to get a little bit. I'm the Y kid, so sorry to test you at your job. I want to know what the reason why, so that I, over the course of the duration of this is not the end of the project. This is the beginning of our time doing this. So.
Yeah, we did have some targeting soil samples in areas that we suspected could have issues. And so we did kind of put an increased emphasis on those areas where we were more concerned, either from a maintenance history perspective or as we've kind of been discussing, elevated groundwater levels that might be accelerating deterioration.
Awesome. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Vice President Ehlers.
Yeah, I really appreciate this kind of planning and this kind of master plan and looking down and proactively replacing. So great job. I love the detail in here. The one thing I was having trouble finding is just the Faith and McKinnon age of that pipe versus the age of the downtown pipes. What are when was Faith and McKinnon installed? Because it seemed like a little newer neighborhood than certainly downtown Encinitas. I don't know if you knew that off the top of your head. What?
So on page 49 of the replacement plan, we have the Faith and McKinnon install dates as 1956 to 1961.
Okay.
And the downtown, which is on page 51, there is 1952 through 1965.
Okay. I was just curious whether they were way off, because I thought downtown could be 1912 or 1910, something like that. But I guess since it is AC pipe, it had to go in that 1950s, 1960s, 70s, I guess even 80s band. So okay. What was my other question was. The downtown pipes, just looks like they're under the streets. I just wonder, are they under the streets or under the alleys or a combination? Primarily, not 100%. Obviously, they go under streets somewhere.
So a major portion of it is on 3rd Avenue, and then the one to the middle there is in an alley just east of 3rd.
So it's a combination. Well, we would be impacting traffic for part of the project, but we'd also be sometime impacting the alley. So, okay, great, thank you. Other than that, I support it. This is just informational, right? So.
Yes, it is. Great, thank you. So I appreciate the great technical presentation, boiled down into something that's a little easier to understand. That's always difficult, so I appreciate that you've done that. I also appreciate the technical questions and the technical answers. I am really happy that we've gotten to the point where we really have this real detailed information. We know it's underground. We know what its condition is. When we knew a couple years ago that the infrastructure was getting older and it was time to assess this, it takes a couple years to get to this point, and I've been looking forward to this so that we can understand where our priorities are. So I appreciate you putting the good work into it, and I did love the detail in the especially when it came to soils. But the interaction of the soils with the pipe is very interesting. I have a couple questions though for more clarification, if you don't mind. So, Mr. Alex, I'm not sure if you're the right person to ask this, but and if you're not, please just direct it to who is. I would like the idea that we have a dynamic risk model now that we're using. It's been established and set up. I understand that dynamic risk models are meant to be updated over time and provide us with an ongoing tool to assess ongoing condition and priorities. How does staff, or how will staff actually do that? Do we have a process? Is it going to be an annual thing, or what is the process we have where we evaluate that risk model, update it? Is it an official thing, and maybe you're okay.
So we'll be getting training as far as setup from the model given by Hoke, and then as data comes in, say if there is a recent main break, we'll input the data from there, and then we'll run the model to see if the priorities change or not, and then we'll go on a project by year basis as far how the CIP is going to roll out. So this is the current framework right now. If other data comes up, like I said, if there are other events that come up, we'll update it. And then if we have to present a new project that the model presents that, we'll do that as part of the CIP planning process.
Good. Then I anticipate it would come back to us when there's changes in the model, and we'd be informed and make decisions appropriately.
This is going to be an ongoing process that we're going to enter each and every data that we might get from the pipeline, from the breaks, from the testing that we do, in order for us to continue having that model up to date and to have a good idea of what the projects in the future would be, if there is any.
Okay. I'm thinking about those projects in the future, and I'm thinking about how we structure our rates, and thinking about capital improvements, which are kind of a pot of money that's meant to then put our pipes in the condition where they have a longer life expectancy. So think about how we actually end up funding some of this in the future. Can anyone shed some light on, I know that's probably going to come before us as something we consider in detail in the future, but could you, as we're learning that this is coming up and we're going to want to spend this money, is it all rate-based, or are there other ways of funding this kind of work?
You know, at this point in time, it should be rate-based, because if you look at the dollar amounts that is needed for the next 10 years, is basically the same that they are right now. It's a $1 million more for asbestos, which is something that we have been scheduling. So, but if at one point in time, as we run the model, all of a sudden we have to replace 5 or 6 miles of pipe just because of the deterioration in the system. Keep in mind, these pipelines were built in the 50s. So in 5 years, they will be 80 years old. So it's just something that will be something that we will continuously look at. And obviously, then we're going to be looking at other venues in order for us, grants, maybe bonds if needed be, if it becomes a larger dollar amount that would be needed for us to do the CIP.
I'm glad to hear that our pipes are in better condition than some others, so there's the good news. But what is the life expectancy of the new pipes with new technology? Do we have a handle on when we're going in, we're replacing, we're upgrading? What can we expect for the life expectancy of new technology?
I think, so right now, the standard would be to install PVC. Because PVC has only been installed for about 40 or 50 years, and so far it's been performing very, very well, even better than your AC pipe. It's not really known if it's going to last 100 years or 150 years, but as of right now, what we know is it's going to last a lot longer, because in the first 40 to 50 years, it's still performing very well. The industry has not yet been able to put a number on PVC like they can with some other materials that are older, 50 to 100 years old. But hopefully we'll be there, at some point in the next few decades.
Yeah, good. Thank you. That was it for my questions. And now, Board Member O'Hara.
Thank you for the presentation. I just had some clarification I wanted to get through. In the paperwork presentation that was provided to us in our packet, on page 2, we had the summary of the 4 recommended projects provided, 4 out of the 7 projects. And this is more just for clarification. The other 3 projects of the 7 total are in the first 3 years of the 10-year plan. Those are already budgeted and accounted for. And I'm only asking because that first 4 projects comes out to $12 million, and all these projects together come out to, is it 17 million? Is that the number I read? 19 million. And so I just want to understand if those are included or why the 4 are pulled out, if just get some clarification on whether they're already accounted for.
So the 4 projects on page 2 of the staff report, those are the 4 projects that are recommended from the AC master plan. And the projects on the 10-year, the first 3 are from the water system management plan, and they're already budgeted for years 1 and 2, which is 26 and 27. So we have those budgets.
When we say that they are budgeted, that means that they were included in the rate study that we have conducted back in 2020. I'm losing time. I think 2022 is when we did it. So we have a 3-year rate study, and these 3 projects were the dollar amount was included in there.
Okay, perfect. I didn't want to make any assumption. That seemed like that was a logical explanation, but it's better to ask the question and get it confirmed. Second question is really simple. We've got the funds coming from the Water Infrastructure Improvement Fund, Asbestos Pipe Repair Fund, all set up. The numbers look great. We carry forward the budget each year, accumulating up to $740,000 or 670, 20,000 as we go up. Do those numbers include inflation, cost of goods going up, cost of inflation, or is this as based on current estimates? I mean, I guess, and if so, would that budget remaining go towards increase in cost?
So for the project shown on this sheet, we did a cost estimate based on current costs, but escalated the dollars out to future dollars. So anything you see in fiscal year 2029 was inflated at a 3.6% inflation rate.
Fantastic. I appreciate the confirmation on there and the clarification. Great job. Thank you.
Great information. And seeing no other speakers in the queue, we'll just remind everyone that this is a receive and file, and so we are doing so. Thank you for the presentation. We'll go on to the agenda item number 12, board member reports pursuant to AB 1234. And this is the opportunity to say anything that's associated with the San Diego Water District. And so we'll start with board member San Antonio. And if you don't have anything to report, just declare nothing. Yeah.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report.
I just have one thing to report, and that is I met as a board member of the San Diego County Water Authority on January 23rd for their monthly board meeting.
And nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Our item 13 is general information, and today we have general manager update and report.
Right. Thank you, President Lyons. I have a couple of things I want to bring to your attention. First of all, as part of our education to our children in the community, we are in the San Diego Water District participates with the North County agencies in an annual awareness poster contest, and you have seen that we bring it in May with our contestants that have our winners. The theme in this year is Love Water, Save Water, and we are encouraging students to illustrate creative ways to conserve and protect our water resources. Winning posters will be featured in a special calendar, so very similar to the one that we had last year, and selected students will receive recognition. We are actually accepting these posters right now, and the deadline is April 1st. On another note, we are working with our Olivenheim Water District and with Santa Fe Irrigation District and our fire department on water-wise landscaping and wildfire preparedness workshop for the later part of May. I'm sorry, for a later part of April. And this is a joint effort between the different agencies, and I will be providing more information as we have a better understanding of what the agendas are going to be. That's it for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Are there any questions on the general manager's report? All right, thank you. And with that, we'll adjourn.
Thanks. I was like, I need to make sure I knew I had a paper this was in the right spot. I was like, just in case I need to say something, I'm just going to let you know. Even though I knew. So you just